going on, guys? Mr. Cloud here to talk about the Dallas Regional I just played in. I got 12th place. I'm going to show you what I played and talk a little bit about how things went, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I would change in the future. So yeah, first off, we played Labrynth because we like purple cards. Starting off on the deck profile and the deck played really well. I don't have any major complaints about it. There are definitely some things that I would change that got me didn't get me the results I wanted. I ended up going 7-2, which is a lot better than I think people thought Labrynth would do. But it is a solid deck. I think I did benefit from people not necessarily being ready for the deck, considering it hasn't been performing the best in the past, or in these past regionals and YCSs. But yeah, we'll get into it. So starting off, we played 3 Silver Castle Lady, or Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle. Considering dropping this down to 2, I did lose maybe a couple games from drawing too many of her. You really only want to, if you're opening one, that's okay, but a lot of the times you're wanting to summon it off of Big Welcome and bounce it back to your hand to trigger your effects. And then you have the summon for her in that turn. So I'm considering dropping her down to 2 because it's not necessarily a bad thing to draw her, but a lot of the times you're wanting to see her off of Big Welcome. Next we played 2 Ariana. Loved seeing this card. Great to see off of Potted Duality. Every time I saw this card, I felt like I was at an advantage. Just having her on the field, having some board presence with your trap cards is huge. Next, we played one of the other big lady. A lot of people say this card is a brick, and I agree with them. This card is a crazy brick. Every time I saw this in my hand, I was at a very big disadvantage. They say that some people say it's not a brick because you can summon it off of the field spell if it's in your hand, but there's not a lot of times when you're able to search the field spell, because the field spell is very circumstantial. I don't want to say circumstantial, but it's most of the times you're wanting to search your Big Welcome or your Welcome off of like an Ariana effect. But yeah, there's not a lot of times whenever you have field spell active with a trap card that can trigger field spell and this in your hand. So you do not want this in your hand. This is a Welcome Labrynth summon only. Next we played 2 Lord of Heavenly Prison. 2 felt great. I never saw 2 of it in my hand, and whenever I saw it, it did its job. It got me the recursion or the consistency I needed. Was able to set me up on the next turn. I think 2 is correct. In the main deck, I was siding this card, but as soon as I put it in the main, I definitely noticed that I was playing a little bit better, getting a little bit better consistency. Next, we play 1 field spell. The field spell is great whenever you're able to get it with both Welcome and Big Welcome on the field or set on the field. Not too much to say about the field spell. I mean, I think it's a definite main deck card. A lot of people are side decking it, but whatever. I tried side decking it, but I never saw an opportunity where I was like, this would be great to side in. Or I mean, I definitely thought there's just other things that you could side that would be better if you do have it in the side deck. But I do think it's great in the main. It gives you bodies. It pops cards on the field. You generate too much advantage from this card, I think, not to play it. Next, we played 3 Pot of Prosperity. Tried the deck without Prosperity. I don't think you can do it right now. You need the consistency. Every time I saw Prosperity, I was playing the game. Gives you backup, gives you follow-up, everything you need. Same thing with Pot of Duality. Yeah, not much to say about Pot of Duality. Consistency card. It did its job this weekend, except for the final round, or the last game of the final round. Drew all 3 in one hand. Could not do that in game 3, so ended up getting my second loss in round 9 because of 3 Prosperity, but I wouldn't drop it down because of that. You do need to see your pots. Like, you really need to see pots in your starting hand. Next, we play 3 Big Welcome and 2 Welcome. Welcome, only 2 because it recurs itself from the graveyard. You don't want to see multiple in your starting hand. Big Welcome isn't bad to see multiple of in your starting hand because you'll be able to activate, many of the effects. But so Welcome, you really only need 2, and this is for the 2 for Trap Trick, but you still play 2, of course, but just in case one gets banished. But this can come back from the graveyard, and you do run out of names to summon pretty often from the deck. So it's always it's only necessary to play 2. Next, we play 2 Terrors of the Overroot. This card underperformed, I think, because of my lack of playing against Kashtira. And when I did play Kashtira, it was either they were blowing me out or I was blowing them out. Terrors never, I wouldn't say never, but it definitely didn't come up as much as I thought that it would for Kashtira. I only played 2 Kashtira this week, or this regional, and I don't think Terrors really had a big impact in either game, either because I didn't see it or because I just had it in a dead game state where I'd already won the game and they just hadn't scooped yet, or I saw it whenever I was behind and they were just banishing my spells and traps and I couldn't really do anything. Next, we played Compulse. Compulse, definite 3 of in the deck. Felt really good. It's helps play. It doesn't really help play around evenly, but it helps you get have recursion if you realize that you are going to get even lead. If your opponent says standby main battle, beginning of battle phase, bounce your Ariana, bounce your Big Lady, whatever. Back to your hand, so you have some follow-up for next turn, because you are going to get that next turn because they're not going to have a battle phase. Also, just as a defensive card, performed really well. Able to bounce Xyz is really nice. Bounce any kind of extra deck monster. I did bounce a Mirror Jade with this, and was able to get me where I needed to be. But yeah, so removal cards, obviously the core of the deck. Next we play 3 Dogmatic of Punishment, my favorite trap card in the deck. Card goes crazy, gives you too much. I mean, you get way too much advantage off this card. It's either 2 pops or a pop and a draw. Yeah, not too much to say about Punishment. It's necessary if you're playing purple cards. Trap Trick, absolutely necessary in the deck. Would consider actually bumping this up to 2. Every time I saw it, I mean, you just have access to every trap in your deck, except for the, or every normal trap, I should say. Yeah, great card, considering bumping it up to 2. Next, we play Evenly Matched. Absolutely necessary in the main deck. If you go second, this card, I mean, you have to see this card if you're going second. I did see it quite a few times in an opening hand after I won die roll, going first, and that's when it kind of hurt. Every time I won die roll, I was just hoping, okay, I just need to see 0 copies of Evenly Matched if I'm going first, and I'm good. But yeah, so drawing multiple in your starting hand when you're going first does hurt, but I mean, that doesn't like give me reason to not play this in the main deck. You absolutely have to, otherwise you're just not playing in a lot of instances. Next we play 1 Eradicator. Absolutely blew out my Runic. I played against a Runic for higher Sprite matchup and definitely won me game 2. Gotta play it in the main deck, even if you're just running blind. I think it's always a good idea to run it in the main. You can either wait till you get information or you can just shotgun spells, and I think that you're still getting a good amount of value. Card that underperformed this weekend, Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. I don't really have too much to say about this card. I feel like I only saw it when I didn't really need it, and I never thought that it was the best option to set off of the Big Lady. I think this may get cut for consistency cards, considering maybe like Reckless Greed just to give you more recursion and follow-up whenever you get even lead. But yeah, I think I may test this some more. This was a last-minute pick for the weekend, and I just didn't see it. I either didn't see it enough, or when I did see it, it just didn't really do enough. So that's all the normals, normal traps. Now we can get into the floodgates that I played. So first off, 3 Skill Drain. Card probably needs to be banned. There were a couple games where Skill Drain just absolutely took over. I think I beat a branded player because of Skill Drain. Honestly just does too much against a lot of, like, pretty much everything. It hits everything at the moment. I can't think of a deck besides Dark World that Skill Drain doesn't really do enough against. Kashtira does play through it relatively well, but I mean, you're at least negating one card with this if you're playing it right. There is a little bit of skill behind skill drain. You are getting at least one negate out of skill drain always. And if they don't find a way to get rid of it, you're usually an advantage because you have the big 3000 body you can get on the field plus your removal traps. Next, I played Gozen. This card always performs really well at locals. At the regional, it didn't perform as well as I thought that it would, but that's because it was always the main target for removal, or I didn't see it, which I mean, playing one of course, you're not going to see it very much. You really just want to see it off of your pots, and you're only grabbing it if you have your consistency already, or I did get hit with Solemn Judgment, I think 2 times, which I mean is saying quite a bit. I think it did do well against my my Sprite match. I played against a couple Sprite, but it did very well against Sprite. Last Floodgate I played, Rivalry of Warlords. Didn't see it, didn't ever really want to see it. I mean, can't say too much about it. I think it did really well against, in one game, whenever I played against the Runic for Hire Sprite. They had to do everything they could to get rid of it. But yeah, I mean, that's the deck, the main deck. We can go ahead and move on to the extra deck. Okay, so extra deck is mainly punishment targets with a couple Xyz that, I mean, never really came up. The only cards that came up in the extra deck were the punishment targets. Still kind of necessary to play the non-punishment targets, but we can get into that. So first off, played 2 Bucephalus. Absolutely necessary if they're making their monsters big with the field spell. I also had played against the Traptrix who played the Therion package, and they had a big beefy 3500 Therion King, while I had skill drain up with my big lady on board, and he just kept attacking over it. Well, I got the Dogmatic of Punishment. This is able to send to get rid of that 3500, so you got to play that big body. Next, we play Dueling Rebo. This came up. I didn't expect it to, but it did. Against my Sprite Adventure match, I did get Ibly twice, and it did turn off evenly, unfortunately, but I at least was able to get around it by special summoning, or get back to special summoning by getting the Lingribo out on the board. Did come up as well to negate a double cross. Absolutely necessary to play. You can't play without this. I definitely recommend running 2. Next, I had the Muckraker. Didn't come up, but does feel necessary to play still, just as a follow-up or just as a backup option. Next, we play Garura as another Dogmatic of Punishment target. You can also so you can either send this alone, or you can send it off of Bucephalus. Bucephalus can send that Wing Beast. The idea is to destroy their big monster with the Bucephalus. Bucephalus effect, send the Garura. Garura, draw you a card. Get you follow up, or into another trap. So not too much to say about Garura. Definitely got to play it if you're playing punishment. Next, main punishment target, Intis. Not too much to say about Intis. It always overperforms with punishments. Double pop is insane. Got rid of many bursts with this card. Absolutely hurt the opponents more than I could have imagined. Next, we played the Fossil Warrior. Never came up this weekend. It was usually just a prosperity target. I'm sure I'll eventually find instances where it'll be good. I mean, I know it is good. It does seem very situational though. Next, which was also kind of same description, the Mirror Logic. Seemed very situational. I never really used it for its actual effect. It always just ended up being a prosperity target. Next, prosperity targets, Toothing Girsu. Yeah, I mean, not too much to say about Dingirsu. I mean, it's a very good card, but I never found an instance where I was able to summon this, just because with the idea of the deck, you're always trying to resolve Welcome Labrynth as much as you can, or resolve your cards that are locking you out of the extra deck usually. So it never came up to be able to summon Dingirsu, but there's a little bit of reason behind playing it. In the future, I may cut this to 1 and play a Deep Sea Prima Donna, so you can have a bit of so you can put back your banish cards. just in case they hit something really important off of the Cashiers hit something off their banishing. Next, we play one Zeus. One Zeus to, summon Ningirsu, attack, go into Zeus. Good, nice little backup option. Next, we play the one Omega as our last punishment target. But yeah, the extra deck, seems very standard pretty standard for Labrynth. I believe this is Ryan Yu's extra deck that he used for, I think it was Vegas, and I just haven't deterred from it. It hasn't really needed any changes other than that Deep Sea Prima Donna edition. But yeah, moving on to the side deck. All right, so for the side deck, we were siding pretty heavily for trying for everything, but with such a diverse format, it was hard. So we started off with 3 Ash, mainly for branded. I didn't side this in against Kashtira. I felt like it didn't really do enough. Against Kashtira, my other traps just do way more, like board removal for traps. Board removal, like for some of the other cards I played in the side deck, but never for Cash. It did well against Sprites. It did well against my Runic matchup, and it did well against I didn't see it against my one branded matchup, so it didn't really come up, but the skill drain just took care of that matchup. So next, played 3 Sphere mode. This card was I was very back and forth on this card. So you got to play it because you play Duality, and it mixes very well with Duality. But whenever I saw this card, it always blew up my opponent's board, and it did its job. But I never saw it with the rest of my deck. I always saw this plus let's say like Evenly and an Ariana, which isn't against the card. That's really just against the deck, not drawing how we need to. But it did its job. Definitely staying in the side deck. Everybody's playing into Nib right now, so if they play into Nib, they're basically playing into Sphere mode. Crazy against Sprite, crazy against Kashtira whenever they go full combo, try to lock up all your zones. Yeah, not too much more to say about it. Next, card that I definitely should not have played, probably. It never came up. I never saw it. If I was going to play this, I should have played it at 3, probably. Time card. Only one of my games went into time. Typically in my games, my opponents were scooping by the 12th minute, or by 12 minutes remaining in the round. So time never came up. I was never too worried about this. We were always going into game 3 with 20 to 25 minutes left in the game. So it was never worth siding this in over something else. So in the future, I don't think I'd side deck this card. I'd go for something a little more impactful. We played 1 spell. We played Harpy's Feather Duster, which came up in my both my Sprite matches, the Sprite Runic and the Sprite Adventure. It also came up against Kashtira. Did its job. Got rid of 2 to 3 spell slash traps. Wouldn't cut it. Would continue siding it. Great card. We played 1 Imperial Iron Wall, which I was considering main decking, but kept it in the side deck. Did its job. I won a Kashtira game. I lost the match, but in the game that I drew this against Kashtira, I did win because of it. It does shut off quite a bit of their plays. It also shuts off pots and shuts off evenly matched. So just got to keep that in mind, that it does shut off your own pots, but your own prosperities, but everything else, it just does too much against Kashtira, and it does too much against Runic to not side deck it. Would even consider main decking. Also in the side, played 2 D Barrier, which a lot of people are main decking this card. I don't think it does enough against Kashtira. I don't think it does enough against Sprites, which are arguably the 2 best cards in the format, or the 2 best decks in the format right now. Some would argue that it does enough against Runic, but I just think that it's right now against those decks, it's low impact. It's very high impact against, like your branded matchup, which is supposedly supposed to have a fairly rough matchup on. I don't think, honestly, that the matchup is very crazy or very bad, but Yeah, D-Barrier just feels very low impact, so I put it against the general matchups, but against like specific matchups, it is very strong, so I kept it inside it too. Last card, always siding in going first unless we're going into time. Judgment, I mean, did its job, did what it was supposed to. Yeah, that's the side deck. So final thoughts on the deck. The deck performed very well at the tournament. I don't have very much to complain about. I think the only changes I'm going to make are going to be ending up to be like some adding some consistency options, maybe like Reckless Greed, something like that. But everything else was great. 7-2 is nothing to blink at. 12th place feels very nice. But yeah, not too much more to say about the deck. If you have any thoughts about the profile or any suggestions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'll be reading those, responding. But yeah, if you enjoyed the deck profile, be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.